today. We are celebrating. First off, let me just kind of make sure my mic is unmuted. Welcome to the stream, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are talking about the Snyder Cut. We are talking about everything that happened this morning, how amazing things are, how awesome things are, and how it feels good. Doesn't it? Doesn't it just feel grand? Doesn't it just feel amazing to sit here in this moment of absolute pure? I'm just gonna say it, a little bit of smugness, little bit of smugness. But I think it's earned. I think it's an earned bit of smugness because for the past couple years it's been nothing. It's been absolutely fundamentally nothing. But Snyder Cut doesn't exist. And you guys are out this bunch of, cultists that just hurl insults at people. And it's like, come on, man. People know that's not true. They know it's a straw man argument. They know it's a load of crap. They know all of these things. And yet here we are. Here we are, May 20th, 2020, 5/20/20, and getting to see that the Snyder Cut is a reality. Real quick, Lords of the Long Box, $10 super chat for my legal fees. Thank you. If those of you who weren't paying attention yesterday, a scooper, and this is actually going to be a nice segue. There's a scooper by the name of Daniel RPK, Daniel Richtman. You might have seen him around. You might have seen him mentioned in a couple websites. Tried to blackmail me over my friendship with Mikey Sutton. Now, if you recall, Mikey is a bit of a scooper himself, right? And he called it. He called the Snyder Cut. In fact, I pulled this up. I wanted to make sure that this was something I could talk about. This is his post back in November 21st, 2019, saying that despite continuous denials from Warner Brothers, there are plans to release the Snyder Cut of Justice League on HBO Max. However, there are issues preventing them from announcing it or when to expect it, mainly that the Snyder Cut is unfinished. There is incomplete FX worth. For one thing, Snyder was gone from Justice League before specific scenes could be and will now be shot. What's left needs to be presented to the general public. Or needs work to be presented to the general public. WB will not confirm anything prematurely when it's ready, so will all be the marketing, as this will help push HBO Max to potential subscribers in terms of social media buzz. And this is the thing. We've been talking about this for a while now. We've been talking about this for a long while. And a lot of people said that it was coming, but the November 21st date is why it's fascinating. Because the November 21st date here was right around the time Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Ray Fisher all came out on Twitter and said, release the Snyder Cut. And that got everybody talking about it. And then, that was, there was talks about there being, negotiations at the time. And it took a little bit of time. It took 6 months, right? It took 6 months to get us to this. 6 months to get us to this. Confirmed. Zack Snyder's Justice League only on HBO Max 2021. Now, I was watching the live stream this morning from my phone. I couldn't do the Vero stream. I had to watch another YouTuber live stream it and everything. And it was cool to watch, but it got a little bit disheartening. I'm not going to lie. Let me start off with that. It got a little bit disheartening when the question popped up about the Snyder Cut. And Zach kind of seemed deflated. He was trolling everybody, obviously, but he seemed a little bit deflated. And he's like, I would love for people to see it. If I could, I would just leave it on a thumb drive in a bathroom somewhere. But it's not up to me. It's up to Warner Brothers. And that's always been the case. Warner's owns it. Warner's owns it. But he's always been tinkering away at it. And I guess over the course of the last couple of years, he put together enough of an edit to get us to something that is going to be now a reality. No longer is this a myth. No longer is this just an attacked internet rumor that, pops up on Twitter and trends every couple months? No longer is this something that people can lord over our heads and say, it's never going to happen. The Snyder Cut's never going to happen, because it's happening, motherfuckers. It is happening. And that's awesome. Now, I do want to say that I loved the bit when they were talking about the mustache. And when at first I was a bit deflated when they mentioned like the Warner, he was downplaying it. He wasn't ready to announce it just yet. But, then they started talking about the mustache. And then I'm like, wait a minute. When Cavill, okay, because just a couple things happened with that. One, Danny Garcia started tweeting about it. Once Henry Cavill got on the stream, Danny Garcia started tweeting. Now, Danny Garcia, for those of you who don't know, is Henry Cavill's agent. She's also the former wife and current agent of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And she is aggressive. She's got a reputation and she's aggressive. And I think, so when she starts tweeting about it, something's happening. Like, she's representing her client. She's not going to come out and tweet some nonsense that doesn't need to be tweeted. She's representing her client, which means that the deals are done. They're signed. They're ready to go. At this point, I started feeling a lot better about it. But when the mustache comment came up, and when Zach's like, I'd love to see it without the mustache, when Henry himself says, I would love to see it without the mustache, that is one of those things where you're like, oh shit, something's happening. Something's legitimately happening. There's movement on this front. Because, they're talking about this now, and they're kind of talking a little bit of crap about Justice League. And that's not Joss Whedon's fault. I think Whedon did the best that he could, but it's not what fans wanted, ultimately. Oil and water mixing sort of thing just didn't really work, separated each other. But really, that mustache screwed the whole thing up. Made Henry Cavill look like Adam Baldwin. Really, go look at it. Put them side by side, you'll see it. So, we're they announce it. And of course, I do a Twitter video and I do a little YouTube video about it, and I'm excited about it. And the initial shock hits me, as it should hit me, as it should hit all of us who are watching this right now. And then, of course, came the questions, right? Well, the who, what, why, when, where, how. What's going on? We know they released the image, HBO Max 2021. We knew it was coming to HBO Max. It made the most amount of sense to come to HBO Max. They're going to release it when it's done. Obviously, Zack needs to finish Army of the Dead and then tinker and then shoot the additional stuff for Justice League. However, there's also the fact that they want to make sure that HBO Max has a rollout worldwide. And they need to have that as being a thing because that's going to bolster a lot of subscriptions. They've already got my subscription. They've already got it. This is what I was waiting for. This is what they need. They need that social media buzz. Oh, and who called the social media buzz as being a reason? That's right, Mikey Sutton, who gets a lot of crap from some people, but this is one you can put it together. This is an absolute called it sort of thing. So let's take a look here at what the Hollywood Reporter is saying, what they're saying about this, because this is going to give us a bit of insight into where things are, because these guys had this article ready to go when they announced it, meaning that a couple days ago, when you started hearing all the bloggers talking about it, all the bloggers saying something, this was because the Hollywood Reporter has got a little bit of a leak going on, and word was circulating around. Everybody was getting ready to, pucker up and kiss the ring, right? They're getting ready to kneel and kiss Zack's ring, kiss the Snyder Cut ring, to get down on their knees and go, "We're sorry. Please, don't banish me. I didn't mean it, Daddy." You know what? That kind of thing. I'm being a bit hyperbolic. Sure. I'm being hyperbolic, but still. It's true. I mean, what is it? Like, look, all this, Andy Signore ate crow over the fact. Jody ate crow, which is surprising because crow has nutritional value, and I was surprised at that. But they did, so congrats to them for owning up to their mistake. They monetized the anti-Snyder Cut hatred for long enough, and now they got no leg to stand on. So there we go. People are now waiting to see what John Campea is going to say about it. And the fact that he hasn't said anything about it yet leads me to believe that he's going to very much try to backpedal. But here's the thing, guys. Receipts? Oh, Film Gob has got him. And he's going to be just lobbing those bombs from here to eternity, because this is the moment where he and a lot of us get to simply say, "I fucking told you." So let's dive into this Hollywood Reporter article, see what they have to say about this. So, HBO Max will debut the project in 2021, possibly in a 4-hour director's cut or in 6 TV-style chapters, as the Helmer gets the gang back together with the original post-production crew to score, cut, and finish the visual effects. That means the Danny Elfman score is gone. Junkie XL is back, and that was already done, if I recall correctly. And I love Danny Elfman, but when I heard that Joss Whedon had gone to Danny Elfman to do it, I was like, wait, what? No, you can't have You cannot have Junkie XL soundtrack from BVS, which was an amazing soundtrack, get replaced with Danny Elfman. It just is like so different. It's just such a different thing, such a different reality. You know? I mean, if you think about it, this is kind of the Flashpoint. Everyone kept saying Flashpoint can reset the DCEU. That dude, it's going to be Zack Snyder's Justice League is now the new Flashpoint. It is. If you think about it, it kind of is. It was okay. Very early on Monday morning in November, when Zack Snyder and his wife, producing partner Deborah Snyder, received a call from their agent. Let's be a bit more precise. It was 7 a.m. But more importantly, it was the day after the second anniversary of the release of Justice League, the DC superhero movie that Snyder was forced to exit due to a family emergency, which was then subsequently reshot and retooled by Joss Whedon. We all know about that one. That's why we call it Justice League. In the time since its release, something unusual happened. A growing movement of fans, railed by the hashtag release the Snyder Cut, had called, agitated, petitioned, even bought a Times Square billboard and chartered a plane to fly a banner over Comic-Con for Snyder's version to be released. And on the film's second anniversary, the hashtag had its biggest day ever, with even more movie stars, Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck, adding their voices on Twitter. You can't make it up, guys. You can't make it up. That's what happened. Snyder Cut fans never once faltered in their commitment and their desire to see this come through. And this is true. They shouldn't downplay. This should be like the Times Square billboard and the plane over Comic-Con. Never mind all of the charitable donations to anti-suicide or to suicide awareness charities, which I believe above all else is the most important factor in all of this. I just want to make that abundantly clear. But still, do not downplay what happened here. This is your movement, guys. This is your time. This is what you were fighting for. And you're getting recognized in the Hollywood Reporter. And apparently that had a little bit to do with a 7 a.m. phone call that Zack Snyder himself received from his agent. Let's go on to find out more. So here, the morning after, was their agent saying that Toby Emmerich, the chairman of Warner Brothers Pictures, was acknowledging the movement and, more importantly, was willing to accede. This is real. People out there want it. Would you guys ever consider doing something? What Emmerich was asking, Zack Snyder recalls. Yeah. Right? But this is also after Kevin Tushihara got ousted. So, again, they were like, ooh, because under Tushihara, they wouldn't have done it. If he was still there, this wouldn't be happening. But Tushihara getting ousted, man, that opened the door. There's a reason why I said his reign is over when he was ousted, when he quit because of the whole Me Too thing and trying to get his girlfriend parts in movies. Like I was saying that at the time. I'm all like, his reign is over. Now, the answer to Emmerich's question, whispered about secret for months, was revealed Wednesday when Zack Snyder confirmed at the end of an online screening of his 2013 movie Man of Steel that his version of Justice League was indeed real and that it will be coming to HBO Max, the Warner Media digital streaming service, launching May 27th, and it is expected to debut in 2021. I don't know if anyone out there was really believing it was going to be a launch title for HBO Max. It should have been, probably, but at the end of the day, you know what? It's fine, I think. Now, it is currently unclear for what form Justice League will take, whether it will be released as an almost 4-hour director's cut or split into 6 chapters has yet to be decided. But the Snyders are now in the midst of reassembling much of their original post-production crew to score, cut, and edit, or to add new and finish old visuals, and yes, maybe bring back many of the actors to record additional dialogue. Well, they're going to have to. They're going to have to if they're going to add in some of those shots. We're finally going to see Kiersey Clemons as Iris West, I believe. We're finally going to see that sequence. We've seen the storyboards of it. We've seen a bunch of other stuff surrounding it. We're going to see all of that stuff. Now, it's also unclear the cost of the endeavor. One source pegged the effort in the 20 million range, although another source says that the figure could be closer to 30 million. The parties have no comment. Well, obviously, they don't want to talk about it just yet, but we'll find out more. Look, we were hearing 20 million a few weeks ago. We were hearing 20 million. I heard it as high as 70 million at one report the other day, but that was just, like, oh, it could cost as much as, but who knows? But as I kept saying, and I say it to you again now, in front of God and everybody, this is a steal for HBO Max. This is a steal for AT&T. because they're going to have one of the biggest IPs on the planet exclusively coming to their streaming service, and all they've got to pay is $20 to $30 million. Netflix is pumping out $225 million for Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Gal Gadot, and Ryan Reynolds' Red Notice that's currently stalled in filming. So this is a steal for them, and they'll make that money up in subscription services because a lot of people are going to get HBO Max now, even though the event won't come out for another year, perhaps, or maybe the beginning of next year. Who knows when it's going to be coming out? Maybe on the fourth anniversary next November. Who knows? Who knows? But what we do know is that it's coming and that it's a steal for what they're going to pay. Now, this is what Zack says. It will be an entirely new thing, and especially talking to those who have seen the release movie and a new experience apart from that movie. Saying here that noting that to this day, he has not watched the version released in theaters. And why would he? Why would he? I wouldn't do it. You know, he knows about it, guaranteed. They mentioned the mustache bit earlier, but he knows about it, but I wouldn't watch it. Now, he says, you probably saw 1/4 of what I did, basing his judgment on what has been shared with him of Whedon's version. Now, look, I want to say that I do believe he's seen it. He's just not going to admit that he's seen it. You know, I would say that. Because, I mean, curiosity. It's always curiosity. Before Emmerich came calling at Snyder, I always thought it was a thing that in 20 years, maybe somebody would do a documentary and I could lend them the footage, little snippets of a cut no one has ever seen. And the thing is, it's not even 20 years. People were talking about that. Chris Gore was recently talking about wanting to do that, like go through Film Threat, talk to Zack, try to set up a documentary, John Schnepp's style sort of thing. I myself have thought about reaching out to Zack Snyder and trying to get an interview and putting together something as like a passion project because I wanted to see a more attention come to this in order to make it a reality. People have been talking about it, but like it must have just been too soon. That's why in the 20 years, because keep in mind, the Donner Cut took 26 years to come out. So that's what Zack was thinking. And a lot of the naysayers, when they were criticizing the fans, they're like, well, the Donner Cut took 26 years. The Donner Cut took 26 years. And like, yeah. And it still came out. Yeah, but like 26 years. You know, like it's a weird deflective tactic that is now null and void, my friends. Null and void. Now, Deborah here adds, with the new platform and streaming services, you can have something like this. You can't release something like this theatrically, but you could with the streaming service. It's an opportunity that wasn't there 2 years ago, to be honest. Well, through Warner's, it wasn't there. Through Netflix, it absolutely was. Now, going on to say here, Snyder was in a unique position when he shot Justice League in 2016. Warner Bros. Had entrusted him with its universe of DC characters to one filmmaker, and he had been building towards a great on-screen team-up. Though not without some bumps in the road, he began with Man of Steel, which grossed $668 million worldwide. Then Batman v Superman grossed only $873 million globally. But again, I completely agree with Humberto Gonzalez on this one when he said that by the theatrical cut was so bad that it cost them $250 million. If they would have done the extended cut in theaters, I think the movie would have crossed $1 billion. I really think that. And the fact that the movie has only grown more popular in the subsequent 4 years since its release, and people have now grown to love the Snyder, the Snyder's vision of BVS, then this is what I think, again, fans would have eventually come around to it. Warner's didn't trust Zack. They wanted Marvel, and that was their biggest fault. And that, again, going backwards, is Kevin Tushihara. That is exactly his whole thing. Now, it goes on to say here, in January 2017, he had what he considered his optimal version of Justice League, almost 4 hours long, although he knew it was something the studio would not release. Warner's wanted a cut in the 2-hour range, and he delivered a rough version with approximately 2 hours and 20-minute runtime. That was the first cut the studio saw. Both sides agreed that there was much work still to be done before their November release, but tragedy struck, and a month and a half later, Zack officially stepped away and Whedon was brought in. Now, this is when we can kind of look at this and go, he gave them a cut, a 2-hour and 20-minute cut, and this is when they wanted Whedon to come in to punch up the dialogue, to make it funny. Because again, they were chasing Avengers. And we know about everything here, how it released and stuff. And so it says here, in the year following their daughter's death, the Snyders closed circles around their family as they tried to heal. The first year was about milestones and the holidays, says Deborah. Now it's not those, but other moments like songs that trigger memories that hit me unexpectedly. And Zach says, as a family, as a couple, I think we have grown in a way that has made us stronger. We are doing our best. You can't hope for more. And that's good. And then we get in here. This is where, again, this is what I think is really important and why I believe it should be more heavily showcased. The duo then became involved in suicide prevention charity work and plotted a return to movies with Army of the Dead. Meanwhile, release's Snyder Cut became more organized and visible, gaining mainstream media attention. Zack Snyder fed into the movement by occasionally teasing images from the movie or storyboards on social media, in some ways only stoking the hot embers, and he saw some of those seeds planted in his movies, especially in his casting of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman and Momoa as Aquaman, grow into gardens as the spin-offs became pop culture phenomenons and billion-dollar hits. Which is true, and that was him. He doesn't get the credit for that. He never gets the credit for that. That's the thing with the naysayers. The I like Zack Snyder ... but ... They always come out and they never like to acknowledge the good things that he did. They just like to go, oh, this movie's a terrible. To quote one person, one ignoramus, trash. You know, like that's what it is. That's what it boils down to. And it goes on to say here, okay, so then we say the Snyders put together a presentation and in early February invited a select group of executives from Warner's, HBO Max, and DC to their house in Pasadena to screen Zack's little scene version that was shown in black and white. The number of executives in the room, there were more than a dozen in attendance, ranging from Emmerich, Carolyn Blackwood, Walter Hamada, so he was there. That makes sense. To HBO Max's Kevin Reilly, Sarah Aubrey, Sandra Dewey, to DC's Jim Lee, showed the importance of the potentially extensive undertaking. Heads of physical production and business affairs were there to assess what needed to be done and how much it would cost. At his presentation after the screening, Snyder outlined ideas for not just releasing a cut, but the concept of episodes and cliffhangers. The executives left the meeting pumped. The Snyder Cut was real, except then it almost wasn't. Okay, but I just want to kind of go back to this here. Listen. Now, look, I'm going to criticize Andy Signore a little bit here. And I know he has come out and he's accepted that he was wrong. But he died on that fucking hill about how Warner's never wanted to work with Zack again, that the Snyder Cut was shit, that he was out there spreading that and attacking people who disagreed with him and then claiming harassment when people said, no, you're wrong. This is what he did. And I'll give him the credit for acknowledging he was wrong. But the Hollywood Reporter here is telling us that when you had the dozen or so executives from Warner's and even Jim Lee, and I want to talk about Jim Lee here in a second, coming in and looking at this presentation of how to complete this vision, how much it would cost, and the style and format of which to release it, and they walked away excited, that is not something that is shit. Right? Right? So whatever your sources are, you may want to burn that bridge, nuke it from orbit, bury it next to all the ET cartridges from the 1980s in the landfill. Because your credibility is garbage on that front. Anyway, quickly on the Jim Lee front. This happened in February, early February, as what we heard the other day. But remember, right before the coronavirus outbreak, at C2E2 in Chicago, Jim Lee was asked about the Snyder Cut. This was after he was at this event. And he said that the DC Extended Universe, he mentioned those words. He said it. I did a video saying read between the lines, and I was right. Read between the lines. Because this is what he was talking about. This is what he was saying. And he was like, look, he can't talk about the project, but he said the DCEU is there. And he finally acknowledged it. An executive finally acknowledged the terminology that under Kevin Tushihara's reign at Warner Brothers, they fought so desperately to walk away from. They fought so desperately to avoid. They fought so desperately to not be associated with the moniker DCEU. Even though all the fans adopted the terminology and the fans loved the terminology, they hated it. I was even in Hall H at Comic-Con. I think it was 2016 when they did the big Warner Brothers unveil, and it's all like the worlds of DC. And everyone in that room, the 6,500 of us, were like, what the fuck is this? What are you talking about? The worlds of DC? It's the DCEU, you nutless villains. What's going on here? But they hated it. They hated it. They didn't like they didn't want that. They wanted like the DCU or something. They didn't like the DCEU, even though it's catchy. But going back to this point here, the Snyder Cut was real. And it is real. Now it says here, they talk about the coronavirus. Now then, Snyder also spent April and May reaching out to the sizable cast, giving a heads up on the new development and letting them know their services may be needed. The first person was Ray Fisher, who was like, "You're kidding me, right?" I mean, Ray Fisher has been the most. I think him and Momoa have been the most public about how much they want to be back involved, especially Ray Fisher, who did not necessarily like how his cyborg performance was displayed. And he's been very vocal. Even before Momoa, Ray Fisher was out there, but people don't really know a lot about Ray Fisher. So I think that might have, once Momoa got on board, it kind of took on this whole new meaning. But still, with Fisher, I think he was the first. Now, there is no schedule going forward as at this stage for the projects, as talks are now beginning with post-production houses, which also gives HBO Max plenty of time to find the best way to present it. Snyder is at the same time in post on Army of the Dead, his zombie thriller for Netflix that will also debut in 2021. So it says here, now, and while the cut will contain many elements Zack has teased over time, yes, except Darkseid, the duo also relish adding a fair amount of character development. What's so lovely about this is that we get to go explore these characters in ways that you're not able to do in shorter theatrical version. And if you go back to Justice League, the hard 2-hour cut of that film, which is what was put, that was an edict put forward by Kevin Tushihara. Notice how he's kind of like the main villain in all of this. We didn't get a lot of character development. Not with the fact they added in 3 new characters, Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg. We didn't get a lot of character development. There was that, lasso of truth scene with Aquaman that I actually thought was fun. I liked that scene quite a bit. But that was a Joss Whedon edition, and that was like the most character development that Aquaman got. He got a lot more in the movie, and I think that was in part due to James Wan kicking the crap out of that film. The movie was great. I loved Aquaman. Now, it says here, the Snyders know that fan power is what led to the Snyder Cut becoming a reality. Clearly, this wouldn't be happening without them, says Zack. He also credits Warner's for living up to his old reputation as the filmmaker's studio. Now, and I do want to touch upon that because in my experience working in movie theaters, and dealing with Warner Brothers specifically, they've always been a very loyal studio to theaters that work well with them. They'll cut you deals. They'll give you what you need. They work with you. They want to have those relationships. I don't know what happened under Tushihara that was more corporate, that was more, I mean, he was clearly trying to catch up. Maybe it was because he was, feeling pressure from shareholders. I don't know. They wanted in on the Marvel game 100%, and they tanked their biggest IP, arguably bigger than Avengers, before 2008, I would say. They tanked it. And as a result of that, now they're maybe getting back to being more filmmaker-oriented, which is what the DCEU needs. The MCU is clearly producer-oriented and very homogenized. And I love the MCU, but that is the truth of it. The DCEU needs someone like Snyder's vision and his visual acuity in order to be able to tell these kind of stories about gods and monsters. And I think he does it well. He does need help. This is my criticism. Like in the story department, sometimes has a little bit of issue, but visually speaking, it's pitch perfect. It's great. Now, finally, here adds Zack, this return to that pedigree and to let my singular vision of my movie be realized in this format, in this length, is unprecedented and a brave move. And you're goddamn right, it's a brave move. You're goddamn right, it's a brave move. I love that, by the way. I absolutely love that. It's one of those situations where when you look at everything that's gone on, the fans have absolutely fundamentally come through. The fans have pushed this. The fans have asked for it. And Warner Brothers finally is seeing the light. And it's because of the regime change. And they recognize the power of social media. So again, going back to that Andy Signore comment, that report, they hate it when it trends on Twitter. Why? Like, I just want to know, like, what was going through that brain of his when he typed out that sentence, because no one ever looks at social media trends that are frequent in the positive as being bad. That is unless it's an executive that was on its way out the door that felt burned by Zack Snyder or burned by the whole situation and was feeding bad information. And again, I'm going back to that because that was just it's so asinine. And now we have concrete definitive proof of how asinine it was. So, anyway, Inhuman Quake here says Snyder needs to be back at DC after Snyder Cut. I agree, man. I agree. And that's actually what Mikey Sutton gave me the other day. Mikey was telling me that there might be opportunities on HBO Max for Zack Snyder. Now, I don't know if he would want to go theatrical or long form. He might find this idea more freeing to be able to explore in the long form because he works better in the long form. And to have that freedom, they should give him the opportunity to do it. But the JJ thing might be a bit of a problem. Let's see. Just bring Zach back 100%. I agree. Renzo here says, I heard it's going to be like episodes, probably. It could be either a 4-hour movie or it's going to be episodic. I believe it's going to be episodic. With Watchmen, the ultimate cut is 4 hours. That's one that ends up being like, it's a bit of I don't want to say a slog to get through, but it can feel daunting. Even Netflix's The Irishman at its like 3-hour and 20-minute length, I believe, people were finding ways to break it up into chapters in order to be able to then better consume it, and not lose their place. And I think something like this would be better served as being episodic, especially ending with cliffhangers. Now, would they release it all at one time, or would it be a week-to-week release? I think it would be a week-to-week release, if you want my honest opinion. A 6-week event series, week-to-week, gives us a piece here, gives us a piece there, and allows the community to dive in and discuss and absorb. I think it's going to be pretty good. I would actually prefer to see it as a miniseries at this point. That's what I'd like to see. So is there any point to getting DC Universe with HBO Max dropping next week? The answer to that is no. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Because as cool, DC Universe, I think, is going to stick around for a while, but it's just, it's not going to do its thing. Let's see here. Dark Claw says, he would choose a 4-hour movie because the miniseries takes the fun out of it. I disagree. And let me explain. So a miniseries week to week would allow the audience time to coalesce around it, to give them time to watch it in an hour at a time, and then to dive in, discuss, and engage. And that's honestly what a lot of these streaming shows need to do. Netflix's biggest problem is dumping everything at once. That's my personal opinion. And I say that because when people out there when you want to get the next water cooler show, it becomes hard to do when everyone is already done with it. If you drop it on a Friday and everyone binges it over the weekend, they might talk about it Monday, but then they're done talking about it. There's so much that they don't really dive into. And I use Stranger Things as a prime example of this. Stranger Things season 3 was shorter than seasons 1 and season 2, and I plowed through it in the first like 2 days. I went through it in like 2 days, and then I talked about it, and then I was done, and I was done talking about it until they announced more with season 4, and then that was it. And season 3 was good. There's a lot there to talk about, but nobody was interested in wanting to talk about it because we'd already watched it all. So you go through your conversation, and then you're done, and then you move on to the next thing. It's like locusts consuming, crops. It's just never ending. And I think that we, as people, like, we're so inundated with content constantly that we need to find ways to slow down. And pump and dump worked for a while, and especially now during the pandemic, I think going weekly is a better choice, because people can have something to look forward to. We're 2 months into this thing and people are getting antsy. They're going through their content like crazy. They're burning through content like crazy. They're running out of things to watch. So that's because they have all of this at their disposal. And I think by scaling it back a bit, it'd be good. So anyway, Inhuman here says, I hope we do get Man of Steel 2. I agree. Nick here says, can you imagine a Zack Snyder, J.J. Abrams Superman film? They have such competing visions. I can't, to be honest with you. They have insanely competing visions. So for me, it would be, I don't know. Nolan and Snyder kind of, they mesh well. Their visions are, visually speaking, they kind of come together. They're more aligned. JJ is not Snyder. I think that Snyder is a more powerful visual director than JJ, but JJ is a better storyteller than Zack. Now, if JJ was a producer and coming on to handle the story and letting Zack do his thing, maybe. But then you could have a powerhouse thing, or power struggle happening, which would then delineate the final product. So there's that. Ryan, who says, I don't understand if people want to binge shows on end. What's the problem with a 4-hour movie? Nothing's wrong with a 4-hour movie, but again, my whole point is building a community around that movie. That's the whole point, is building a community around that so people talk about. Look at Mandalorian, week to week to week. People were you leave them wanting more is the whole point I'm trying to make. It's the whole point. So, Kevin Smith almost made a Superman movie with Nicolas Cage in the 90s. Yep, I've read that script. It was terrible. It was, let's see. Do I think Joss Whedon will be able to find work after this situation? Well, none of the situation is quote unquote his fault. That's the thing we call it Justice League because it's a Frankenstein movie, but it's not his fault. He was brought in, he was hired to do a job. He did it to the best of his ability. Again, we're talking about different visual styles, different storytelling styles, different, themes, different humor, different elements, and then trying to come together. Again, it's that water oil analogy because that's what it really boils down to. It's water and oil. So no, none of this is Joss Whedon's fault. He did what he was hired to do. He was also, overruled by Warner Brothers executives who came in and they're like, look, we want a 2-hour hard cut. So someone on Twitter said to me earlier, #release the Whedon cut, right? And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, fine. If they had a full version of something that was cut down, then I would check it out. I would totally watch it. I would. I'm not going to sit there and campaign for it like I would with Snyder Cut, but if they released it, I would definitely give it a watch. But the thing is when they were in post-production, that 2-hour hard cut was there. So that's what they aimed for, was a 2-hour hard cut. This isn't like BVS where they had the 3 hours and 15 minutes and they chopped it down to 2:45 at the cost of narrative structure. That was different. That was what they had completed. But Warner's, again, was afraid of that long of a movie when here's Avengers with 3 hours and 58 seconds pulling in $2.8 billion worldwide. So it's no. Could we see a Blu-ray version after the first release in HBO Max? Yes, Chad, it will eventually happen. Netflix is doing it too. You can expect that The Mandalorian will eventually be released in 4K. People will want to get it on home video, and Disney's going to want more money. And Warner's is going to want more money. So yeah, if they release the Zack Snyder's Justice League on Blu-ray, I'm buying the Steelbook 4K edition. I'll buy the edition that I can inject straight into my testicles. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, but I would buy it. Yeah, I would pay the money for it. 4-hour Whedon cut. Yeah. Let's see here. If Justice League Snyder Cut is good, do you think we'll get Justice League 2 and 3? See, that MCU is going to be the biggest issue. That is the problem. That is seriously where we find ourselves. And the reason why I say that is because this is something Kevin Smith brought up the other day. Now that the fans have won, that shows you that they can use the fan power to move mountains. But if they don't show up to watch it, because keep in mind, this is all about money. If they don't show up to watch it, then it's kind of all for naught, or not enough people engage with it. So it all depends. And then it also boils down to how much the budget's going to be. A lot of these streaming movies, they might get around $100 million budget because that seems like what's well within, what they're going to need it for. But Justice League itself was like $300 million. And they're going to add another 20 to 30 million in. So it's just like, is the money going to be there? And if it's there, then cool. If it's like Mandalorian size levels of popularity, then yes, I think we will get a Justice League 2. And we'll probably get it theatrical. But again, it's going to require a fucking mountain to be moved. An absolute mountain. This is getting the green light to do this is one thing. The next steps on that front are going to be wild. I don't know, man. I don't know. I want to see it. Sure. I want to see what Snyder's vision of it was. I want to see him kind of come back into the fold and kind of, course correct. I think Warner Brothers has acknowledged that there have been mistakes made on their part. And that seems like they are now trying to go back and fix things. We'll have to wait and see. Eric here asks if I'm excited for HBO Max. I totally am. Is Chokra Miller still the Flash? As far as I know, he is. That hasn't been said nothing yet. You're hoping that DC does Vertigo movies off their work? Maybe. Let's see here. A 14-hour Whedon cut with a 2-hour movie to wrap it up after it's canceled. Yeah, you know what? Screw it, Kurt. Might as well, right? Might as well. We'll do that. Let's see. Do I think HBO Now will be phased out in favor of HBO Max? Well, I mean, isn't HBO Now just the HBO side of? I mean, if you get HBO with HBO Max, yeah, it's gonna be. I think you get that, right? I mean, there's HBO Go and there's HBO Now. I don't even know what the difference between the two of them are. I think I used my sister's password for HBO, so I don't even know. But I'll get HBO Max because I want to get access to all the other stuff. Let's see. They've already made their money back on JL. This is an easy investment. That is true. Squidmaster. That is true. They have made their money back. I don't know if I'd say profitability, but they've made their money back. Yeah. Do I think the DCEU will adjust its canon for the cut? Well, what canon has been altered at this point? Nothing. What have we had since Justice League? Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey. That was it. Aquaman exists in his own side universe. That's fine. Wonder Woman 1984 comes out, and that takes place in 1984. So that's a long time, 25 years or whatever, almost before the events of Justice League. 35 years, or 33 years, I think, before the events of Justice League. So the canon of the DCEU is still intact. Even Shazam. Mention Batman and Superman. They had the Batarang. You know, that was that one kid's prized possession. Superman cameo in the end. And even though it was Henry Cavill's stunt double, he was in the Superman suit. So it's still within canon. It's still absolutely within canon. Let's see here. Lucas says that the HBO Max will arrive here next year in time for the Snyder Cut. Yep. Okay. Carl here says, how influential could the fandom really be? How far can they go in terms of influence? Well, it took them 2.5 years to push this thing to the point of getting to getting made. And I do think that Snyder's teasing helped out quite a bit. I do. I think Snyder's teasing helped out quite a bit. It kept people engaged. And that's the difference with these fan movements. When you've got the creator that is behind it as well, that's feeding the flames, keeping it going, then it from there will gain steam. A lot of these fan movements, if the creative entities behind it aren't actively engaged, even on a guerrilla front, then they lose steam after a while and they end up just kind of dying. And in many cases, I believe that the studios are kind of waiting for these things to die off. But we're talking about 2 years of the Snyder Cut movement, and it only grew. It only grew even though more and more of these access media, morons were out there railing against it all the time. You're just a bunch of whiny piss babies. It's never gonna happen. Oh, now it's happening. Where's your crow? Where's your humble pie? Here's the tip of my wing. Suck it. You know what I mean? That's the thing we've been dealing with for a couple of years now. It's what we've been dealing with. Let's see here. Yeah, Shazam had a BVS reference. Exactly. How do you think the DCEU will continue? I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, the Flash is still being written. We don't know. We don't know. I think they're talking about Gotham City Sirens for the next Harley Quinn movie, which could easily go back to kind of playing in that the Suicide Squad thing. We got the Suicide Squad, which I want to know how much of that is going to change canon. But now, because of the situation, they might get Gunn to edit it to where it doesn't change canon, and that is just a continuation. So, it kind of a soft reboot, but still a continuation sort of situation. And then my question then becomes, are we going to get Affleck to come back on to do a Deathstroke movie? Because wouldn't that be cool? Right? Because they still have the ending of Justice League. I want to see about that, if that's going to get expanded upon. I want to see what's going to happen with Luthor. What's going to happen with Deathstroke? Are we going to get more shots from that? I really want to see that. So I don't know. Am I excited for HBO Max? Yeah, I am. Yeah. I do want to get it. Warner Brothers is, I think, my favorite studio. So I have a lot of movies I love. Let's see here. Watch the Comic-Con trailer. Most footage was unused. Yep, I was in the room when they revealed that Comic-Con trailer. And I was hyped as fuck, dude. I was hyped as hell. And yeah, Go back. You go back and you watch the scene with Affleck when he meets the Flash for the first time, how thin Affleck was, and then you see like kind of fat Affleck when they reshot because he'd bulked up a bit. And so it was totally like it just looked different. Affleck looks a lot better now. I see a lot of pictures of him with Anna de Armas. There's all the tabloid sites. Affleck's out with his girlfriend walking their dog during quarantine, and I'm all like, yeah, now you're just rubbing it in that Ben Affleck is dating Anna de Armas, you bastards. Let's see here. I lie. Sony's the best studio. Go F yourself. Let's see here. Fat Fleck. Yeah, kinda. I mean, kinda. Eric here says HBO Max will have the Lethal Weapon trilogy and J.G. Quintel, the creator of Cartoon Network. Oh yeah, no. There's a lot of stuff on there. Yeah, there's a lot of original content coming. There's a lot of content coming to HBO Max. A lot of cartoons, a lot of comedy, a lot of anime. That's Studio Ghibli films, South Park, Rick and Morty. There's a lot of stuff there that's going to appeal to a lot of people. Let's see here. Bring back the Star Wars anthology movies, or I riot. Well, I mean, maybe. So there's that. Let's see here. The Squidmaster says the Asylum is the best studio. No, it's not. But it is what it is. All right. I think I'm going to wrap this up in about probably 5 minutes. So get your final questions in right now. Let me just kind of. I can't see all of the. I can't see everything that's happened here. Let me just kind of. I can't see all the chat. I know there was the one super chat. If I missed another super chat, let me know. I didn't see it during the time I was recording. Or I'm not recording when I was talking about the article. So Universal's pretty good. I do like Universal. I do like Universal quite a bit. Fast and Furious, big fan on that one. Could we ask about the Colin Trevorrow cut? For what? For Jurassic World? Or what are you talking about? Let's see. Villain for the Flash movie, Grodd or Captain Cold? Oh, God. If they did Grodd, that'd be great. How can Robert Pattinson's Batman be brought into the DCEU? They would have to set it in earlier times. We're talking like 15 years, whatever, before the events of BVS. That's when they'd have to do it. And I don't know. I mean, we don't know the future of, there's no like set timeline. There's no year. Like the MCU has said like, oh, in 2014, this happened. But the DCEU hasn't established a specific time. So we can play with the time a little bit. And I think that would be fine. But having, but now with Justice League, and that's the thing, with Justice League being announced, what does that mean for the Batman? Like, what does it mean? I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, the speculation could be anything. It could be literally anything. I have no idea. So it let's see here. What is the possibility of HBO Max dropping a teaser trailer on launch day? Carly, yeah, pretty high, dude. Like, I'm pretty high. It's gonna be something. I'm sure they're working on something to get people hyped up for it. Have I been watching the Mando behind the scenes docs? I've seen the first two. I haven't seen the third one yet. I'm gonna rewatch the second one today, and I'll watch the third one today too. But yeah, it does kind of feel like they're really focusing on Filoni and Favreau as being the main creators, and I think that's good. I loved Clone Wars season 7 outside of like the Tracer arc, but I thought the opening and final arcs were great, and I can't wait to see what Filoni and Favreau bring to Mando season 2. Let's see. What are the odds the Ayer cut drops this year on HBO Max, seeing it's actually complete? I don't know, Jose. I think the Ayer cut would come out after Zack Snyder's Justice League, because Zack Snyder's Justice League is going to kind of set the precedent for it. And I think as much as I want to see the Ayer cut, now we have to move over to release the Ayer cut. That's going to be the next thing. But I don't know if Ayer is going to fight for it, like Snyder fought for it. I don't know if Ayer is going to fight for it. But you know what? Let me see if I can find. David Ayer, he tweeted something today that kind of is a little bit on the suspicious side, if I'm being fair, right? It's a little bit on the suspicious side. Let me bring this up here. Let me post it over. Because I don't quite know what to make of this necessarily, but where is that at? Okay. This is what he tweeted out a little bit ago. And it's the Joker, and this is it. And that's it. It just says Joker, Jared Leto, and I mean that's all it is. I am different. F your opinion. That's all it says, right? But my question on that, because if you look at the time it was posted, 11:56 a.m. That was right after. That was not long after the announcement of Justice League, and it's like, I mean, even that comment right there, the first comment we see is someone saying, "Release the Ayer cut." You know, like, dude, and then of course the GIF, from The Running Man, which is absolutely amazing movie. I love that film, but that's something that's going on. We don't know. They could release it. They should release it. Let's see. Bring back Batfleck for more scenes. 100%, dude. 100%. Affleck was great. What's my personal opinion to where they take the DCEU after Snyder Cut? Do they continue with Snyder's vision? Yes. Not cool. 100% they should continue with his vision, because this is what brought us to this point. His vision set up the path, and they've deviated a little bit, but they've kept it somewhat tonally the same. Shazam's kind of tonally the same as that. But what they need to do is they need to focus on the vision and then make lower budgeted films. Like the Joker, while not being part of the DCEU, could be. It could be. They could retcon it in there. They could easily retcon it in. And it did $1 billion. But they should absolutely, continue it going forward and then focus on smaller, character driven, filmmaker focused movies that tell these stories contained within this universe. Give them a micro, not a micro budget, but like a modest budget of like $75 million. And then they'll make that money back. If the movies are good, they'll make the money back. If the movies aren't good, you're not blowing $300 million. And that's what they got to do to go back to being the filmmaker studio. Like I said before, the DCEU should be filmmaker driven, whereas the MCU is producer driven. So that's the whole point. And I mean, like, oh, what is it, man? Like, Snyder said himself, he's like, I don't want to make movies that are designed by a committee. He's like, because at that point, and I'm paraphrasing, he's like, at that point, it becomes a corporate thing. It becomes a corporate logo, not a filmmaker movie. And that's what he said, and that's what he's always kind of stuck true with for the films that he's made for Warner Brothers. Which, by the way, the movies that he's made for Warner Brothers has grossed over $3.1 billion. So he's definitely pulled in a lot for Warner's, which is why I think they got some loyalty. Took them a bit of time to get back to it, find their balls again, but they did, and here we are. We get to geek out about the Snyder Cut. We all got to watch the Snyder Cut next year. I mean, come on. How cool is that? Now we all just have to survive Corona. And that's going to be crazy. So, let's see here. To be fair, there was never a Whedon cut, only a WB cut. That is true. Should Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern be reincorporated into the... Shut up, Garrick. Just shut up. Shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. Is Zack Snyder going to be done after this cut is released? I don't know, man. What I've heard is that the door isn't shut. That's what I've heard. Let's see. Snyder is still full director credit for Justice League, so that's a real thing, and that's true. RVD, that is true. He did get full direct. I mean, but that's also part of the Directors Guild, right? Like they have rules for that too, for how the crediting happens. There are like legitimately rules for this, and I think because he shot like most of the movie, that's why they gave it to him. If and honestly, if they would have said directed by Joss Whedon. Like, if it would have been, like, directed by Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder, I think people would have, like, really been upset, And you can't even watch the opening credits for that movie and have it, and considering that it pulls, like, basically from the opening of Watchmen. It's the same type of opening credit sequence. And then go, oh, yeah, this is a Joss Whedon joint. Like, no way. It doesn't work. Affleck did say that he's done, but this is also over a year ago. And anything can happen. Everything can happen, and we know that. Never say never in Hollywood. Should Shaq... God damn it, Garrick. Shut up. Let's see here. Garrick isn't wrong. Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern needs to be brought in. I need to see Henry Cavill's Black... You guys are just all sorts of crazy stuff. Well, yeah, Ben said he's done, but anything could be happening. Anything could come back. Let's see. Chris Terrio is getting sole writer's credit for Zack Snyder Justice League, meaning Jeff Johns' pages are gone. Where is that said, Sam? Is that said somewhere? I don't see it, so I don't know. No idea. So we'll have to see that. Is Campea actually acting like he supported the Snyder Cut? Hold on, let me look him up on Twitter. Let me look up Campea. Where is Campea? Okay, there we go. All right. Did he say anything about this? No, Campea hasn't tweeted out anything in like the last 5 days. That's a little bit weird for him, isn't it? A little bit weird. Oh, maybe he's like on vacation or something. I don't know. No, Campy hasn't said anything yet, unless he said something in his stream today, but I didn't see it. I didn't watch it. Campia is irrelevant. I can agree on that one. Let's see. This is going to be the biggest thing for HBO Max. Yeah, yep, I completely agree. And Marvel DC fan says, I hope the Snyder Cut is good. Dude, we all hope the Snyder Cut is good, and that is also something we have to prepare for. What if it's not? What if it's not? But I think, because there's so much hype surrounding this. There's so much damn hype that if it's not good, then we're in for a hell of a we're in for a hell of a thing, right? We're in for an absolute hell of a thing. But I don't know. I really have no damn idea what is going to be happening. So I can only hope that that it is good. And I think given the time for more character development, given the time for more more exposition of the story, given all of that time that they've been talking about, that he was talking about in that interview, I think that this is something that is going to be better than what we got. And I think if it's better than what we got, that's going to be one of those aspects that I think people are really going to stick to. And then you're going to get people that are going to come out and just attack it because, I always said the Snyder Cut was crap. All right, well, okay, let's be fair here. I want you guys to, yes, Genshi, Andy Signor is irrelevant as well, 100%. Here's what I want you guys to do. Press 1 if you think that there's going to be the pundits that are going to come out and support it. And then if it's not very good, they're going to sit there and go, well, I mean, like I always said it was going to be trash or something along those lines. Because there's going to be a lot of them that are going to try to double down and attack it. But they're going to be going up against a very rabid fan base of people. So, I mean, their social media mentions are going to be terrible. Let's see here. Ben Bamboo says, Snyder Cut is almost guaranteed to be a letdown. Still polishing a turd. Well, you can't say it's polishing a turd. You haven't seen it. You don't know all of what they were going to do. You don't know everything Snyder was going for or building with Man of Steel and BVS that was going to be unveiled in Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2 before it ended up getting condensed. And then he ended up leaving the project. So saying it's polishing a turd when they're going to go back to the original footage and shoot some more footage that we never saw. Keep in mind, Joss Whedon wrote 80 pages and they shot 80 pages. Probably a lot of it was dialogue for the 2-hour Justice Cut, so you can't say that just yet. We're not there. We're definitely not there. Let's see. People are going to still say that it's trash. These haters must be ignored. Stay away if you don't like it. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree on that one there. All right, guys. So on that note, I think I'm going to wrap this thing up because I need to go and check on my kids because they are taking a nap right now. But here's the thing. We did it. Make no mistake. You guys did it. You guys absolutely knocked it out of the damn park. All of that time of fighting back, of pushing back against nonsense, of doing everything you needed to do to get the word out there, raising awareness for suicide prevention, donating to charities, Times Square billboard. You got the attention of the heads of Warner Brothers, and they fear you. So what they do? They went back, tails between legs, balls in their hand, and they said, please, Daddy Zack, come back to the table. Come back to the table. We need you. We need you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from this. I look forward to what you guys have to say about this. And I look forward overall, most importantly, for how we all get to enjoy this fan win. This is good for fandom. And that at the end of the day is what is best. And I'll see you guys later. Thank you again for watching. Please be sure to hit that like button and peace out.